Hello and welcome to this week's video, and this week I'm riding a Honda 125R. So this is one of Honda's new sort of look bikes, the 125 being the sort of entry level into it, and this is the Neo Sports Cafe look. So they're taking sort of modern bikes and give them a retro twist. My initial impressions of the bike are really good. For a 125 it goes quite nicely, sounds quite good. I was instantly at home. I've been riding about 20 minutes, something like that. As soon as I got on it, I just found it really simple to ride. It's interesting that the reason I've got this bike is my wife's CB125R is in for a service, so this is their demo bike they've lent me. And there's quite a difference between the two bikes. I thought they were going to feel very similar. My initial impression of the differences are these bars are a lot wider. That's the cow and calf. So yeah, so these bars are a lot wider and the bike feels more planted, as though it's heavier. I'm not sure on the actual weights, but the front end feels a bit more planted, and I think that's probably helped by these wider sort of straight bars. Also feels a bit more modern with this sort of TFT or LCD dashboard, which works really well and has got all the information you'd need. So proper fuel gauge, which I like to see. A clock, again, it's something that's sometimes missing, is really useful. Obviously your rev counter, gear indicator, and then you can go through your sort of trip meter and stuff as well. So now to some sort of basics of riding. So your seating position, really comfortable, sat quite upright, legs are bent quite a bit with your pegs sort of straight below your hips. Really easy neutral riding position. Back brake, easy to get to, works well and progressive. Same with the front brake, works really nicely, nice and progressive. Gearbox is great, it's a 6-speed box on this. Some 125s are only 5-speed. Something it has got, it's got a little light here that tells you when to change gear, but I'm actually finding that a little bit annoying. What else? Switch gear, as you'd expect, fairly sort of basic, but all feels decent quality. As I said, these handlebars nice and wide, so you have a decent sort of position, and handling wise it's just very easy to sort of throw around. Mirrors, I think these are the same as a lot of the Honda mirrors, work really well, not really getting much shoulder, so you get a really good view of behind. So this is what I'm talking about with this sort of gear change light. I'm only just accelerating up this hill here. As you can see, that flashes more and more the higher up the revs you get. And it seems to be flashing quite a lot for 8,500 there. So wind protection wise, there isn't any. It's a naked bike, but it's clean air coming off the front, and you actually sit quite far forward really. So there's nothing in the way here to make that air turbulent. When it comes to suspension and handling, you can tell it's got not just basic suspension. So these front forks are Showa forks. It even reminds you of that, it says it on the top there. And they do a really good job of soaking up the bumps. I was going over some speed bumps earlier that were like mountains, and it just soaks them up nicely. It's not too soft and it's not too hard either, it's just right. So handling wise, it also handles really nicely. So obviously it's a bit of a damp wet November day today, so I'm not flying around any corners anyway, but yeah, it seems to handle really nicely. Again, I think aided by these bars, which sort of give you quite a lot of confidence in the corners. I'm not sure what the tyres are, but again, they feel pretty good, and they don't feel really thin and spindly like some 125s give you that feeling. Even at these higher speeds then it feels really nice, the bike. It's not lots of vibrations. In fact, there's no vibrations really, which for a single cylinder bike at sort of high revs here, what we're doing, 7,500 revs and 60 mile an hour, and it's still got more to give, then it feels really decent. It doesn't feel like a 125 should. So performance-wise, pretty good. Let's talk about comfort for a minute. So I've been riding for over an hour non-stop now. I am about to stop, but really I don't feel like I need to. It's very easy and very relaxing bike to ride. This seat's comfortable as well. Normally 125s, the seats aren't always great, but this is fine. It's quite big as well, so you can move forward on it where it's a bit thinner, or you can move back on it. So there's actually quite a lot of space on the seat. So something today has taught me so far, two main things. One being that you can have fun on a 125. I've really enjoyed riding this bike on these sorts of roads. It's a lot more fun than I expected and a lot less hard work. The only time you've sort of struggled is on steep, fast inclines really. I think the other thing it's shown me is that you can have fun on a bike in any weather. So it's a cold, damp, fairly miserable November day, and it's still really good fun being out on a bike. I think we've got spoilt a bit this summer with it being so nice, and lots of long, hot, warm, sunny days, but it just shows that even in this country, through winter, you can still have fun out on your bike. So, onto my usual positives and negatives about the bike. On the positives is, as just an all-round bike, I think it's superb. Quality of everything's great, it rides great, it sounds great, brakes are good, it handles well, it's comfy. So just everything about it feels like a really premium product. The second big positive is just sort of how grown up it feels. It doesn't feel like a normal 125. Yes, you're slightly limited power wise when you're sort of going up hills, steep hills, that kind of thing. You realise it is a 125. The rest of the time you actually forget it is a 125. It feels like a more grown up bike, if that makes sense. And the third big positive is just how easy it is to ride. I instantly felt on home with this. I've been riding a few hours due to some dodgy navigation on my part. I've ended up being in the saddle a lot longer than I was expecting to, and it's been super comfy. It's still really good fun to ride. It's not the best day to be out riding, but it's been great. I've really enjoyed it. Like I say, far too much fun than you should be having on a 125 really. So on to the negatives, and this is where I've really struggled, as I usually do, to sort of find any faults. The only minor annoyance is exactly what you can see happening right now. This sort of, when you're up in the revs, you get this flashing. Well, I'm in 6th gear doing 60 mile an hour, the engine's not stressed, but we've got that annoying flashing, so it's just slightly distracting. So that's really the only sort of negative I can find about riding this bike. I think the biggest negative for most people though is its price. So as I mentioned before, it's a premium product, it's got things like show suspension, it looks great, all these kinds of things, but you're paying a price for that. So this bike's just under £4,000 brand new, which for a brand new bike is reasonable, I think, and it's a really good bike, but it's a 125, so if people are comparing 125s with 125s, it's going to look quite expensive. There are other bikes in the same sort of price range that are 125s, and again they're sort of quality products. So I'm thinking of the MT 125 there. So yes, £4,000 is a lot of money for a 125, but it's a completely different class to things costing less than that. So there's that to bear in mind. I also think the sort of target market for this person isn't someone that literally just wants to get a 125, pass the test and then get rid of it. I think it's someone that thinks, actually, a 125 does everything I need. Do I need to go to the expense of passing my full test? I do think it works really, really well for that. So who do I think the bike's aimed at? Obviously, with it being a 125, then anyone learning to ride, this would be an amazing first bike. It would really get you hooked. Also, as I mentioned when I was talking about price, then for someone that wants a 125 and isn't interested in having anything bigger and a 125 suits their needs, then again it's just a brilliant choice, because it's such a great bike all round. So while I remember, I just want to say a big thank you to the Honda dealer who lent me this bike. That's Craig's Honda in Shipley in Yorkshire. They've got a huge selection of bikes there. When we bought my wife's bike there, then literally you couldn't fit in the showroom, there were so many bikes. I said we bought my wife's Honda CB125R from there. It's been a fantastic bike. There's been no problems, we got a good deal. The after sale service from the guys at Craig's has been brilliant too, so highly recommend them. So if you're in the area, then do go check them out.